I was aware of toxins, but I didn't know what was in these implants. You get told this story that, oh, it's just silicone and a lot of saline, salty water. And you think to yourself, that's not that bad. It's medical grade silicone. It can't be that bad if they put them in millions of women's bodies. But yeah, when I went down that rabbit hole, that was a shock to realize, like, gosh, again, what are we doing to ourselves? And where's the regulation and what is actually in these things? Is it written on the side of the box that the implants come in? No, it's not. The actual brand of the implant that I had in my body had been recalled in Europe because it was causing a type of cancer. But here's the thing that shocked me. No one contacted me to tell me. I have connected with a lot of ladies over the years because when I found out what was in them, at that time I was writing for a big website called Collective Evolution, which is still going today. We would get millions of hits. So I wrote an article that, went massively viral. And it's probably one of the most things I'm proud of, to be honest, because it just hit so many women and it inspired a lot of women to get them out. They are a ticking time bomb.
Welcome back to Age with Intention podcast, where we explore the habits, the strategies, and the mindsets that help people live healthier, live longer, and more intentionally. So today's guest is Anna Rodgers, author of the book Toxic World, Toxic People, a passionate advocate for low toxicity living, wellness, detoxification, and navigating the modern world without becoming overwhelmed by, obviously, the toxins, the environmental toxins. So what I love about Anna's work is that she's basically focusing on the toxins in the environment. She also explores how our relationships with daily choices, with travel habits that we have, and mindset can either support or obviously sabotage our health, right? So in a world filled with chemical exposures, we're going to talk about that, stress, information overload, and constant travel, people go back and forth, and we've noticed that in airlines or in airports, there seems to be a lot of toxicity happening. And Anna helps people simplify the process of creating a healthier lifestyle without living in fear. And that's very important. So Anna, welcome to the Age with Intention podcast.
Thank you so much for the intro and for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you too, because I know you're busy and I appreciate your time. So tell us about your personal journey. I like to start off with the story behind the person here. What inspired you to write the book, first of all, Toxic World, Toxic People?
Well, it's obviously because I lived that kind of lifestyle. And what I explain now to people is I lived a childhood of what I'm trying not to do for my own kids. My parents were well-meaning, but didn't have any knowledge about health. My dad's he's a retired doctor now, but he was very mainstream, didn't believe in healthy food. Everything I was ever given was pharmaceutical-based medications. My mum didn't breastfeed me. Plus, I also suffered with a lot of childhood trauma, which so many people do today. So I was being bombarded from all angles with loads of toxins and a lot of stress. And by the time I was 12, I was not okay. And I spent many years being very paranoid because I didn't realize at the time, but I'd already been subjected to a lot of toxicity from shots that my dad would give me and also lead exposure. Later on, I've pieced things together. I remember sitting in my bedroom that was painted. I remember picking off the paint chippings and just sort of like playing with it because I was sitting there looking out my window so often. I was always in my room because I was crying pretty much every day. And I would pick off the paint. And when I was younger than that, about 7, I went to a holiday place, like a motel, and I was playing with the kids there. And we found some paint tins that were just lying there. And there were no adults supervising us. So we started to play with the paint and we thought it would be funny to paint it on our arms and our legs. And we realized that dried and we couldn't get it off. So we had to quickly get it off with the synthetic turpentine. And then I jumped in the pool. I never gave it much thought that I would just use lead-based paint on my body. But when I pieced things together, I went through a childhood with lots of broken bones and difficulty concentrating. I've never had much natural ability to breathe very well. And lead, I think, can do that. It can interrupt with your red blood cells, and it obviously damages you neurologically. And I always had trouble concentrating as a kid. I just didn't feel normal. And I had insomnia from the age of 12, and I knew that wasn't right. But I was so scared of what was going on up here. I didn't want to tell anyone about it. So I kind of lived in like a private hell for years and years and years. And then when things got worse between my family and I, they always thought I was making things up and being too dramatic. But I was really suffering on the inside. And, you know, when the hormones kicked in, that was a whole other ball game. I developed very serious what they call premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. Basically means you go crazy before you have that time of the month. And yeah, I certainly became very suicidal as a kid and a teenager, and because of all the trauma, I didn't feel loved. So I ended up in really bad relationships with men that were giving me the energy that I was attracting. And yeah, it wasn't until I was about 25 that I really got very, very, very ill. I'd always been really ill, but this was just on another level. And by that time, I'd met someone, actually quite a nice person who I'm still with. And then we moved to England. And
From
my
where?
health,
From Australia to England?
yeah, that's right. I grew up in Australia. And yeah, when I was 25, that's when we made the move to England. But I got worse really quickly over there. And I think it was lack of sunlight. And very quickly, I knew something was really wrong. I had no memory. I'd walk upstairs and not know why I'd gone up there. When I walked up the stairs, I'd have to hold onto the railing because I had no energy in my body. And it was really scary to not even be 30 and to be realizing my brain is just getting worse every day. And I was very angry. So my poor husband was living with a crazy person who was always arguing and, you know, really getting focused on these things. And it was very tough for him. And it's a miracle he's not left me. And then the good thing about social media is I started sharing how I was feeling because I wasn't getting any help from doctors. By that stage, I'd been on antidepressants. And of course, they don't really help you. If anything, they numb your feelings out. The one that I was taking had a benefit of helping me sleep because at one stage, my insomnia was so bad. I think the worst it was I didn't sleep for a week. And
Wow.
though, yeah, it is a terrible thing to go through because you literally feel like you're going crazy. But then, yeah, a friend who I'd connected on Facebook said, Anna, it sounds like you've got mercury poisoning. Do you have any fillings? And I said, no, I'm lucky. I only have like one filling, and it was like a composite one with the white filling. It wasn't the silver stuff. And then she said, have you had any flu shots? And I was like, yeah, of course. And then I'd had one about a year and a half before that. And she said, some of those flu shots contain something called thimerosal on it. And she goes, you should go and find out. And luckily, because my dad administered the shot to me, I said to him, what was the brand name of the vaccine that you gave me? And he said it was Fluvax. So I quickly looked online, looked at the ingredients, and there it was. And then I looked at the symptoms of mercury poisoning and then checked them off with the symptoms I had. And I had pretty much all of them. And then it started me thinking, why is this stuff in a medicine? Like, what's that about? And I ended up detoxing it out. And within a couple of weeks, with zeolite, within a couple of weeks, I felt so much better. It was almost like a miracle. And even my skeptical husband, we were out one night for dinner and my friends were saying, you seem so much better, because they were worried about me. We used to go out and I'd be in a pub and not know what we were talking about. Halfway through the conversation, I'd be like, sorry, I've forgotten. And even being out in public was tough for me because all of the noise, all of the different lights
Would irritate you.
for a person that's full of toxins. It's a bit like what happens to autistic kids. They can't handle the noise. They can't handle
Right,
the
they
bright
can't.
colors. They can't handle too much movement. It's like sensory overload. And I didn't know at the time that that was caused by toxins. But yeah, when we were with these friends, they said, you seem so much better. And I was like, yeah, I feel really good. And then my husband piped up and he said, I know this stuff that she took works because she doesn't smell bad anymore. And I was like, he goes, I never told you, Anna, but your body odor was just smelt sick. You smelt unwell.
So
And
the
I was
whole
like,
body odor, not just the breath,
yeah,
but the
yeah,
whole body odor.
yeah, it was. And I didn't even notice it because I was so used to it. And I'm a very clean person. I'd always have 2 showers a day and use all the products and everything. But to know that I'd always smelt sick was like
Right.
shocking to me. And then, of course, I was so pleased that that smell had gone. But this whole experience just blew my mind because why don't people know that this stuff's in there? And then once you go down this rabbit hole of investigating chemicals, you then see all the other ones that are bad and what they're in, and that we're surrounded by them. So then I started writing. I wrote quite a big book, and it was just one subject to another that made me realize where I feel like we're going really wrong in the world is obviously the toxins are damaging people, and it's damaging children even before they're born. You know, as a mother, when you're pregnant, if you don't detox before you're pregnant, you will pass on industrial chemicals to your baby. And of course, kids are being born full of chemicals. And then when they get given more through bad food, the environment, of course, they are developing neurological issues.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've seen it too, eczema in little babies. It's like, it's hideous. And then because of the trauma I went through, I was like, wow, we really are toxic people because of the way we're being brought up. If you have, in my case, unfortunately, my parents were both quite narcissistic, where they'd put their needs first. And it really seems like they didn't have children for the right reason. They did it because they're English, they're doctors. Well, dad was a doctor. It was the right thing to do, you know, get married, have a good job, and have children. But we all grew up. There's 3 of us. We've all got issues, and yeah, it's made me realize what happens when you're, you know, raising kids. How should you speak to your kids? What happened to me? What didn't I get? And that was sort of acceptance, validation, unconditional love. I never had that. A lot of emotional put downs. So yeah, my book just was everything I wish my parents had known and everything I felt I needed to know before I had children, so that I wouldn't have them feeling like I did, and certainly the health stuff. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I used to be very bitter about being sick for so long. I spent most of my life sitting down and lying down and not being active. It's been very tough. All of the trauma has wrecked my gut, but I'm getting better. And some things have happened over the last few years that have really, I've learned a lot over the years, but I've realized the mistakes I made not doing certain things. So for example, when I was 18, already very sick, I met an iridologist who looked at my eyes and then gave me a program of things to do. And they said all these things that were wrong with me. But when I looked at the list of things I had to take, they wanted me to do liver flushes because I was 18. I was like, I don't want to do that. Oh, no way. That's too hard. That's too tough. But now, as someone who's almost 50, guess what things I'm doing? Everything that was written
Things you were
on that
supposed to do at
form.
18.
Yeah. I just wasn't ready. And then, of course, because I was so miserable, I got into drugs. I drank a lot and was just on this path of destruction. Because again, when you're brought up in a family who don't make you feel loved, it's hard to love yourself. If no one's ever said to you, I love you, then you don't feel that way about yourself. So as much as I can blame things and mistakes that they made, I also then became my own worst enemy by the things I was saying to myself and the things I was doing. But now, I must say, I'm quite grateful to have gone through this journey because I do have a purpose now. I try and help other people as much as I can. I've been lucky to, be able to speak on platforms with lots of people listening. So thank you for asking me to do this. I can finally say that I've become a healthy, happy person. It's taken a long time, though, and a lot of money to get here, because when you're so ill and you're trying to help yourself, because that's what we have to do, right? We have to learn these things and not really rely on other people anymore to help us. I've wasted a lot of money over the years, and I've found things now that if I'd have known about those things years ago, I wouldn't have needed to have spent, I think, $50,000 that I've spent in the last decade trying to get better.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people fall into that where nowadays they're spending over $100,000 with
Oh, yeah.
things they think are going to help, adding more and more and more, when in reality, sometimes it's just taking things out. Well, especially right now with the toxins that you were talking about. And your story is interesting because you grew up with obviously a father that was in allopathic medicine, and it's understandable. They are, their training is specific to whatever field. Or was he a gynecologist, or was he
In
primary
Australia,
care?
he was what you'd call, in Australia, the name is a specialist physician. So he wasn't a GP. A GP means a general practitioner. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that. What would you call that in the States?
Just I guess I mean, general practitioner would be just a primary care
Yes,
practitioner.
yes. So he specialized in a lot of things, and he's a very smart dad. And I used to work for him, and his patients would come up to me and say, "Your dad is so wonderful. He has a lovely manner." And I look at him and think, "Thank God that you were so nice to people in their moments of vulnerability." But
Right.
now I know, yeah, now I know also he's been brainwashed, and he does not like what I do. He's never even read my book. To him, it's evil that I'm saying to people, try and stay away from pharmaceutical stuff as much as you can. Use it when you have to, but don't have a lifestyle where you're 80 years old and you're on 16 different medications. Like, that's my message. But for him, he thinks it's dangerous.
It doesn't work out when you're outsourcing. And I'm not just talking, it doesn't mean your dad was doing anything evil. It's just like you said, there's a system that, most people get indoctrinated with, and that is it. It's like you don't stop and think anymore to where, wait a minute, before this, what was going on? Was there anything else? Yes, there was, homeopathy or naturopathic medicine and the traditional Chinese medicine,
Yeah.
Ayurveda practice, which I do. So many great healers out there that were before allopathic that were pretty much swept under the rug, right? But that's always been around. But when they make them focus on just that, and that's all they believe. So I understand that point of view. But nowadays, I think there is more acceptance in some medical doctors that are choosing to say, I'm going to study. Okay, I'm an allopathic. I'm not going to mess up my relationship, or I'm not going to break any rules from that industry, but I need to learn more for me and my family. And when you talk to them, they're like, yeah, for my kids, I'm not doing all these shots. I'm doing just the base, or I'm not doing this, or they're changing to holistic. And I'm like, I see, keep learning, keep learning.
Exactly.
We're never done learning. And it's a
No,
different integration. You studied allopathic. I'm not disrespecting it. I'm just saying you should look into others. There's so many more. And when you put all those together with your specialty, guess what? You're going to be able to help people even more, because the power you have is you can prescribe stuff when you do need a medicine, antibiotic, or whatever people need. You have that power, but now you have another power where, guess what? Read my daughter's book, basically, right? There's so much help you could do. Preventative health is the first thing, and we're not taught that. So
but
even, yeah,
it's
go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say it's really interesting because I've obviously spent so much time in that environment with someone who is a doctor. And even as a kid, I would sometimes say things at the dinner table, questioning things. And yeah, I was never able to really get a conversation that was like, if I said something that challenged him, it was always shut down. But when I first I've got a 14-and-a-half-year-old and an almost 11-year-old, but both girls, and they've not had any shots at all. And when my parents knew that, especially my dad, he would say things like, well, they might die. Like, he would just all this, like, but here we are so many years later, he knows that none of our kids have had any of those. And guess what? They've never gone to the doctors. My daughter had a little accident. She had to get a stitch in her leg. Another time, we thought maybe fractured her foot. So, of course, she went to the doctors and had an x-ray. She was fine. Nothing else. Like, they've never been ill. And he knows that. Yet the way the mentality is for these allopathically trained doctors, they just think you're lucky. Like, if you haven't caught something serious because you're not protected, then, oh, you're just lucky.
You
Or
dodged
you
the
were,
bullet. Yeah.
yes, you were just around people that had been vaccinated. And I'd say, Dad, actually, the school my kids go to, 99% of the kids there have had none, because we put them in a Steiner school when they were really little. But again, it just goes over there. They don't understand the terrain theory. They don't get it. And of course, we know why. They've been pulled away from that. But and also growing up as ill as I was, do you think they recognized that I was ill? No, never, never. I mean, I had sort of sicknesses. I'd have a sore throat or a stomach ache, but they did not understand how much I was suffering on the inside. And they still don't get it today. But, as I said, it's fine. They're just a different generation. And my dad's got his own issues. He had a terrible childhood, which, of course, affected him in the way he sees us. But I said, I'm happy that I've learned all these things and I'm trying to do stuff very differently for my kids.
And you have obviously, right, already off the bat with the educational system at first giving the love and, saying I love you, so important.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I sort of say it too much, really, but they know it. And it's like, I don't remember once hearing it from my parents. And you think, gosh, I'm 50 and I never heard it. So, as much as they will have problems in their life, because it's life, right? It's never perfect. To know that if they are asked by someone, do you feel like your parents truly love you? And the answer would be yes. That to me is like, wow, I'm glad about that. It doesn't mean that they don't have other issues and that sometimes they hate us, but just knowing that they're not going to be searching for someone else to fill that hole in their heart. And I've already seen in my daughter, who is, as I said, almost 15, she might go out with a boy that she likes. If he doesn't treat her well, she ends it with him. And that makes me so happy because I was so desperate. I was so desperate to be loved that I kind of go out with anyone and I'd let them treat me like dirt. So already I'm seeing things that they're different to me, that they're not acting the way I was. And yeah, I'm sure we'll run into difficulties later in life. But so far, I think, the things that I've done with the co-sleeping, the attachment parenting, taking them out of the mainstream school system is already, showing us that it can work. It can really help for a child to feel like they belong in the world, they have a purpose, and that they're loved.
And knowing or feeling that they love themselves as well, right? Like you say, you didn't know how to express that or love yourself because of the disconnect. So yeah, once I think the kids get it, they love themselves, then they're going to respect themselves. They're not going to just be going out with any boy or girl that treats them badly. So yeah, that is a huge sign if you're seeing that your daughter's like, no, I'm going to pass on this.
Yep.
Because
So
that
proud.
love and that respect for themselves, that's already a great sign that they've improved the generation, right? From where you went through, they're going to be better. And that's important for parents for sure.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes they get really annoyed with me because I obviously give them loads of supplements. I talk about sugar and I try and limit it. And I talk about microplastics, and my little one will say, "Oh, Mom, not again." So, I do annoy them, but I also know that they know that I am trying just to protect them and to keep them as healthy as possible.
And they will, especially when it comes to time that they have kids. It's like when you tell them, straighten up, their posture. It's like they get annoyed, right? Yeah, but this is the same thing. You keep reminding them of the toxicity. And yeah, I know our kids used to complain about there's never any treats or any snacks in our house. No, we don't have poison. Sorry. My friends
Yes,
has so
right.
many candies and chips everywhere. Yeah, well, not in this house. We're protecting you here.
That's
You'll
what
know.
that's what we say. And of course, the worst time for me every year with the kids is Halloween. I absolutely despise that
That's
time.
a tough
It's
moment.
horrible.
Yeah, that's very tough. Yeah, but that's great. I mean, right now, with people waking up to the fact that we are exposed, and not just with chemicals and, the pesticides. I mean, I'm glad that all that is out there and people keep repeating it and showing it on social media with the glyphosate and all the toxicity. But now we have bigger problems that are affecting us mentally, neurologically, which are environmental toxins, that we can't see but are there. And that's huge for all of us to now start looking at hidden or invisible toxins that are
Yeah.
now being built intentionally. They might call us conspiracy theorists, but it's out there. I've been in touch with a lot of people, scientists that are going under the microscope, and they're seeing things that, oh my gosh, we think glyphosate's a problem. Here we go. New toxins. So it's never ending. That's why I'm glad, you already got started with your book, Toxic World, Toxic People. I think you need to do a second edition because now we have new toxins, and I'm talking about the smart dust in the air that all these heavy metals are spraying to create the connection with us with the grid. That's a whole new topic, and the
Yeah,
toxicity.
I didn't know about that. There's a few things that yes, I would go back and add that in, and I also had my own experience with toxic breast implants. And how crazy is this, right? I wrote that book and then yeah, I went and got implants put in.
After the book.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I've had them in for a long time. Well, I've got them out about 3 years ago. But I was aware of toxins, but I didn't know what was in these implants. You get told this story that, oh, it's just silicone and a lot of saline, salty water. And you think to yourself, that's not that bad. It's, medical grade silicone. It can't be that bad if they put them in millions of women's bodies. But yeah, when I went down that rabbit hole, that was a shock to realize, like, gosh, again, what are we doing to ourselves? And where's the regulation and what is actually in these things? Is it written on the side of the box that the implants come in? No, it's not. And when you find out that no one really knew what was in them until there was a class action lawsuit against a company called Dow Corning, which in the days of, like, I guess the 80s and 90s, maybe a bit early before that, that was the main brand that was making most of the implants. And there was a huge lawsuit against the company because so many women were very, very, very sick. I think some women even died that was connected to the toxicity of what was in them. And in the court case, they had to disclose the ingredients of what was in them. It's absolutely staggering what they found. They even had traces of fluoride in them, antifreeze, printer ink. Like, it's almost unbelievable what was in them. I don't think that degree of toxicity is in the new implants today. Well, I hope not. But in saying that, I really don't know. I don't think anyone knows. But I have, connected with a lot of ladies over the years because when I found out what was in them, at that time I was writing for a big website called Collective Evolution, which is still going today, but they were censored during COVID. But back then, we would get millions of hits. So I wrote an article that, went massively viral. And it's probably one of the most things I'm proud of, to be honest, because it just hit so many women and it inspired a lot of women to get them out. And now it's become, I don't want to say common knowledge, but a lot of women know that they're dangerous and a lot of women have had them taken out. Even Crystal Hefner, Hugh Hefner's wife at the time when he was alive, she went public that hers were making her sick and got them out. And it's crazy what's in them. It's crazy what they can do. When I had mine taken out and I'd had them in for 14 years, the surgeon took a video after he removed them from my body, and I have it on my Instagram. And so the video is of him talking about the implants. And so he cut them open. And of course, when you have them in your body, your scar tissue gets formed around the implant.
Right?
Yeah. So he cut that off. Then he showed everyone how sticky the skin was. And he's like, look, you can see it with his gloves like this. He goes, that's silicone. That's why it's sticky. So it was like, "Ugh." And then this was what shocked me. The actual brand of the implant that I had in my body had been recalled in Europe because it was causing a type of cancer. But here's the thing that shocked me. No one contacted me to tell me. And because I remembered the name of the clinic, so I emailed them, just wanted you to know that I'm absolutely horrified that the implant you put in me ended up being recalled. Why didn't you contact me? And then they said, oh, we've got no records of you coming to see us. We don't, yeah. And they said, we don't keep them after 8 years. We throw them all away. So because I had them in for 14 years and then didn't know until I had them literally removed, they didn't even call me. So yeah, it's a pretty disgusting industry. And of course, when you're a plastic surgeon, putting the implants in can be your main source of income. So a lot of them don't want to admit that they're making you sick.
They're
And
in their business, obviously. That's the
exactly.
number one
Yep.
thing. I
Yep.
had one plastic surgeon one time comment on my post. We were talking about obviously ways to heal holistically. And I'm like, you're telling me that I'm giving misinformation out or dangerous information about how people should prevent getting sick. You're out there doing crazy, crazy plastic surgery on people. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It's obviously they're there. That's their business. I get it. But wow, it's gone wild. And you hear of deaths all over the world from these surgeries. And I'm not just talking about breast, but the implants in the butt, everywhere, even for men now. It's the wild, wild west
Mhm.
of surgeries. And yeah, they're in it for the money. They're not saving lives. They shouldn't even be called doctors, if you ask me. They should be called
And you know what?
sculptors or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. And you know what's really sad is that I met countless women because I ended up creating a Facebook group. I think we had 20,000 women in there at one stage, and they're always coming in and asking questions. So many women are sick and they can't afford to have them out because they can't work anymore. And their mental state, they're just a mess. And, we also have to look at the fact that statistically, women with mental issues are more likely to want to get implants in the first place. So already the surgeons are dealing with a vulnerable, mentally not always right woman. Well, why is that person not mentally well in the first place? It's their health, it's their hormones. They're already toxic. The doctors aren't ever going to talk about that, are they? They're not going to say, well, we need to see if you're really fit and healthy, or we need to put you on a detox program to see if your body's going to be able to cope with this. But yes, so many women were just like, I can't work anymore. My hair's all falling out. They're just an absolute mess. And the way I see it now, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's not easy to be healthy in this world that we live in now. As you said, we're facing like spike protein issues, the graphene oxide that you were talking about before. Women really should be staying away from implants of any kind, because if we're already having to fight for our survival to be fit and healthy, putting in something so big and that nothing in them is natural, your body is not going to like it. It's why it's so painful when they go in and it's, yeah, I mean, I've never experienced pain like that. I had mine put in under the muscle, and the surgeons tell you, oh, don't worry, it means you don't ever have to have a surgery again. It will last forever. And you can drive a truck over these implants and they'll never burst. But they've not done studies about what happens when it's put in a warm body, because obviously we have a temperature, don't we? And what happens over time? Will your body's temperature start to wear down the casing of the implant? And in many situations they do, because of what the surgeons are pulling out. And the lack of regulation is just insane. I don't know if you heard about this case, but in Europe there was a brand called PIP, and they were really cheap implants. So of course a lot of the surgeons used them. The guy behind the company wasn't even like a doctor. He made the implants with materials that you can get in mattresses.
Wow.
It wasn't even medical grade silicon. And the pictures I have seen, in fact, if anyone wants to Google this, if you just go and Google, PIP implants, you'll read about the story. And
That is insane. I can't believe that.
possibly see what they look like. You know, I was lucky in that my implants, even though they were sticky, they were still completely fine. But I've seen women's implants come out like scrambled eggs, where when the doctor had to take them out, they spent 12 hours getting all the pieces out.
Because they fell
Yeah,
apart, basically. They say they're not going to fall apart, and they get with the wear and tear. And I guess the body also attacking. They're foreign invaders, so the body's going to
yes,
attack.
yes.
Not only is scar tissue developing, but I'm assuming the body keeps attacking these daily. So they're going to tear up and then going under the muscle.
Yeah, oh God. The pain was like
So they put the implants under your muscle as well. And
it's
that's,
they say it's to make them last forever and to look more natural. Because if you're putting it like not under the muscle, then they look more ball like a bag kind of thing. Whereas underneath you've got more of your own tissue that they look real. And that's true. I think they did for a while. People thought they were real. And the irony is now and again, you don't get taught this. No one ever sits you down and says, this is what's in them. This is what could go wrong. You might need money in the future to take them out. No one ever sort of warns you of what can happen.
and
But
it's
when,
more
and again,
expensive, right?
and
To
they don't, yeah,
take them
they,
out.
they don't, they don't tell you as well. If you do decide to get them out, you'll probably end up with less breasts than you had to begin with. So, because when you think about it, you put an implant in, it makes your skin very quickly stretch and therefore gets used to that size. And then when you take them out, they obviously have to reconstruct your breast. But for me, I have now quite baggy skin here, and no one told me that. Like when you get your implants out, if you decide to, you're going to be left with like really stretched skin because the implants that you're going to choose are so big that you'll even be pulling here. And I have numbness at my back because when the surgeon took them out, he said the surgeon that put them in the first place chose the wrong size for you. They were too big. And he said for me, because it was a very difficult surgery for me to get them out. I was in surgery quite a lot longer than I was quoted because he was having a tough time reconstructing my body. And then, yeah, now I've got numbness everywhere. Like, yeah, it's horrible. And because when they take them out, they literally take the nipple off and then you get a scar here. And I've got a scar at the side. And it's very painful because now I'm left with like, there's no fullness inside of them. If I was to lean over, they look like socks. And yeah, sorry, I'm giving you too much information. I just want women to know
No, they
that
need to know this.
this is
Yeah.
what this is what can happen. And you know, I'm glad they're out because my health is better. My body's not fighting two massive foreign objects. But my boobs before, there was nothing wrong with them. They were really nice. They were just a bit smaller than I would have liked. And then now I'm left with
It was just
even
natural you.
smaller.
It was natural you, bottom line.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it's still worth taking them out because of the health issues. And yes, you can have scars. Yes, you can have numbness here and there. And that happens with every surgery. Numbness is going to occur. That's with me, with my ankle. The numbness is there. You know, they're going to damage some, not only tissue, but some nerves there. So it makes sense. But I rather get rid of the issue because you're saying a lot of women are losing their hair, right? Their hair, and then they're losing their, I mean, I'm sure hormonal issues everywhere. Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy.
Yep. And yeah, the worst thing is seeing how much pain they're in, like physically and mentally, and then knowing that they don't have a job, so that they don't have insurance, or even if they do have insurance, their provider won't pay for it because they don't recognize breast implant illness. I think some are starting to now. So the tide is turning a little bit, but to know because women don't know until they know that they're dangerous and they're toxic. But take it from me, when I found out, I was very stressed. I was like, oh, what have I got? And then for me, I didn't get them taken out for 2 years because I was paranoid about the surgery. I was thinking, oh gosh, what if I wake up during surgery? What if I die? I was like just crazy. And it turned out the operation was like easy breezy to cope with. Getting them in was way more painful. And what I noticed straight away was I used to get really weird heart palpitations, and I didn't understand why. And now I know it was because the implants was doing something to my liver. It was creating some kind of like elevated liver enzyme that was like connected to the heart and making the palpitations. The very next day, no more. As soon as I woke up after the surgery, I never had that heart palpitation issue again. So that was like, wow. I'm not going to say though that getting them out made a huge difference to my health. I don't actually think it did. I had to go and do other things. I had to use my ozone. I had to clean my liver out because it's very congested. So I started doing liver flushes. Yeah, my main issue, I think, over the years has been a ton of inflammation. And I think that was probably caused by a lot of stress. But psychologically, I'm glad they're gone. And it's also for me with my platform to be, and there's a lot of women that do talk about toxins and they have them in. And it's, yeah, I kind of feel like you can't live a low tox lifestyle if you have those in your body, because the way I see it is they are a ticking time bomb. You know, they might be okay now because some women say, I've had them in for years, I feel great. But sometimes things can happen where all of a sudden there'll be, I don't know, some of them can have a hole in them as well.
Yeah,
I've heard
no,
dreadful
it is
stories.
like you said, ticking time bomb. And like I always say with everything, there is a time that'll come that you cross that threshold and you start having massive issues. And that's why I always say, it's not going to be just one single toxin, right? It's going to be the overload of toxins. So if you're already there, you have the implants in there, and then you start, and I'm not saying you're doing it on purpose for yourself, but unfortunately the environment or modern lifestyle, more toxins coming in, and you already have the implants in there, with your immune system constantly fighting them, something's going to give eventually. That's
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
threshold. So there's a lot of damage being done. And then when you remove them, like you said, yeah, you're going to have to work on supporting the liver. And then slowly but surely you'll start doing better, but damage is done.
Yeah, a lot of women, when they have the saline implants in, and again, I didn't know any of this until I read a book. I think it was called The Naked Truth about breast implants. And she was a surgeon who had them in herself and got really sick. And then now, I don't know if she operates anymore, but she did. She used to take them out of people all the time. And she shared some photographs. So the ones that are the saline on the inside, they can go black from mold. They can get mold inside of them, which then, of course, will go into the woman's body. So a lot of people, when they're getting the implants out, then they have to deal with the fungus all throughout their body that sort of mainly started
Kind of
because of
heard
them.
that about like mold inside them.
Yep. Yep. And then, using antifungals, you have to be careful which type you use. Some of them can be really tough on your liver. So yeah, women don't realize what they could be facing when they want to get those things put in.
So they took yours out, and it was just so hard to remove the silicone from the skin. Horrible. And you've done other studies with, what about I've heard of like the new ones, gummy bears?
They are bad too. Yep. Women in our group saying they had them put in and they're sick and one of them's burst or this or that. Yeah. So far we've not seen any implant, any brand that is safe. They all have problems with them.
And what are the big problems you see in women when they start having? For example, like what are the symptoms you start seeing right away? I know it's probably fatigue, and then do they start seeing physical issues
It's so different, and sometimes I think women have all these symptoms and they blame the implant completely for that. And I don't think it's always 100% the fault of that. It's like the whole picture of the health, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's fatigue, rashes, nausea, constant headaches, the migraines, yeah, bad periods. It's just the list can be huge. Breast implant symptoms literally are a list a mile long. And there's no test. You can't go and get a test for it, at the doctors, and they come back and say, yes, your implants are making you ill. You just have to decide for yourself if you think that's part of it.
Yeah, because that's a big group you have in Facebook there that they're all having issues and it's not stopping. There's a lot of women removing that.
My group is nothing compared to, I think there's a group called Breast Implant Illness by Nicole or with Nicole or something. The last time I checked her group, she had like 150,000 in there. And what I used to love is women coming into the group saying, I haven't got implants yet, but I'm wanting more information about them before I decide. And then quite often they'd be like, right, not getting them anymore. And I'd just think, thank God that they have they've dodged a bullet.
Yeah. No, I've always thought, you're going to put something in your body that's foreign, your body's going to attack. And you mentioned when they took yours out, there was a bunch of scar tissue, right? And so the body just was trying to destroy the implants, basically. Never ending fight.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. And then, if you suffer with inflammation already, and it's a common problem for so many people, having them in is only going to put more pressure on that and you'll experience more inflammation. But, it's good. It is good to, ever since I've written my book, and that was, I think it came out 2012, things have changed a lot. Like the amount of people online now talking about toxins blows my mind, because I feel like sort of when I was, certainly not the only one that was, but the information was still new and people didn't really know anything. But now so many people do that it's amazing to see.
Again, it's not a single toxin. We're not just going to blame one thing, but it certainly is an accumulation of everything they're putting on. And unfortunately, women are the ones that put more things on than off, right? And they start losing their hair and then they're blaming this and that. But I think it's an accumulation it's a toxic overload. So you got to start taking things out instead of putting more things in. Like people right away want to add more supplements, more medications, I have this issue. I'm going to add this, I'm going to add that. But then you're just making it worse when you're supposed to be removing things.
You know what? One of the worst things I think is in social media is the makeup influencers some of them have, like one girl who's really famous. She's got about 20 million people following her. So, and she's really good at what she does. Like the makeup that she does is just perfect and it's amazing. But my God, the amount of stuff they put on is insane, where they'll because it's all about like how things look on camera, and they literally just squeeze products out all over their face. And it's just like, it's all bad stuff. And I'm sometimes can't help myself while I write underneath, beautiful makeup, but you should do a sauna about 3 times a week and take some detox stuff, because that's going to make you sick in the future. So there's still a lot of people that are not caring at all about toxins. As much as it's changing and there's more people that are aware, there's still many millions that don't care, and it's guaranteed it's not going to lead them anywhere good in the future. I mean, you look at the statistics of cancer, 1 in 2 people develop cancer during their lifetime. So it's almost a given that these women are going to be sick or not be able to have children, which is so common.
At an earlier age now. Now when it went from 60 to 50, and then when 40-year-olds was common, and now 30-year-olds is turbo cancer that's common. And yeah, it's accumulation of everything with the vaccines, with the environmental toxins, with all that, the nanoparticles, the smart dust, and then you're putting on the makeup, the hair, the implants, and that's why you see people dying. It's like, it's incredible.
And no wonder when you know all the stuff that we know about, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But it's frightening to know that people are getting sicker younger and younger. Is really scary.
Yeah, and that's why we got to bring that awareness. And you stepped up to the plate. You had implants. How long were your implants? 12 years?
14 years. Yeah,
and
14.
Finally pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have them. I used to keep them and show people. And then one day, as in the ones that they took out, I cleaned them up and kept them. But then one day I was like, I'm just going to throw them in the bin, because I just didn't want them around anymore.
Did you ever pursue the lawsuit for the recall? You just didn't want to deal with it, huh?
No, that's a good point. I never even thought about that. But yeah, I don't know. I've been involved in other things, like, not that I was in the lawsuit because I didn't have them, but I've met lots of activists in the space that are talking about the PIP implants, and that's been amazing and horrific to watch. I think the man that developed those implants, I'm pretty sure he's in jail now, but he's a literal psychopath. Some of the things he said during the court case and the lack of no regard for the women in the stories. And, some women have died from his implants. He didn't care. He didn't care. So it gives you a taste of some of these people that's behind some of these pharmaceutical products. They're not good people. They just care about money.
Yeah, it's all profits, no heart. You have to go in there with no heart to be in that industry. But yeah, it's a crazy industry. I get it. The marketing's great. The doctors, they are actually like the doctors that are, doing the surgery on your implants, they're being manipulated, right? Because they're thinking, oh my God, it sounds great what you're telling me. This product is going to do this. And oh, that's great. I'm going to tell my patients. And how much are they? Oh, they're the cheaper brand. Oh, good. A lot of people can't afford these. So I'm going to start promoting this brand. And little do you know that it's a horrific product with all kinds of chemicals. And what did you say? There was mattress material in there?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do your research, people, because I'm telling you, you can't trust anything. You have to do your research. And then it leads back to what we were talking about. Love thyself. Like, this is how you look. This is how you are. Just start loving yourself. And there's other ways you could look better. Exercise and go back to the basics, like 50s and 60s. Most women didn't do implants. This is something new. Now the butt implants and all that. The lips, it's getting crazier and it's a business.
Yeah, and there's more information coming out now about Botox and the fillers and what happens when you stop having filler. It's still in your face. I'm an idiot. I used to use Botox. It must be 10 years ago now. And I was aware that it was a poison, but again, it's a little bit of poison. But now there's information to say that it's getting into your brain. I mean, of course, it makes sense. You're literally injecting it there, but that it's possibly, it might mess with people's memories permanently.
Makes sense. Like mercury, like with the mercury fillings, that eventually evaporates. It's a vapor and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And we have all these mental issues and can't figure out what's going on. And it's all the mercury from not just the fillings, but the vaccinations. They carry mercury, people. So it's like, really think about it. Flu shots. No way. I would not do that. I think the last time I did that was 1996 because I worked at a hospital. They forced us all to take them, but
oh, wow.
It's been a long time.
I probably had one that year too because, living with Dad, he would always just say, come on, let me give you one. But the last one I had 2 weeks after, that was the one that made me really sick. But looking back, other ones that he gave me made me sick too, because I remember being about 14 and I'd get these weird rashes around like my elbows and my knees. And Dad thought that was fascinating because one of his specialities was he was a dermatologist as well. I think we were talking about that before and then I lost my train of thought. My dad was specializing in HIV, cardiology, dermatology, and cancer. So he saw lots of people. Yes. Yeah. Super smart man. But he was fascinated by my rashes, but not necessarily in a way of, let's find out why she's got those. It was just, well, that's interesting. Whereas I knew that wasn't right. And it was probably to do with some recent shots that I had. And yeah, unfortunately, my parents have had nine COVID shots. And they get flu shots every year. My dad got cancer last year, prostate cancer. Luckily, he had it taken out and it's gone for now, but it's not connected the dots that the shots may have caused that to grow really quickly. They'll probably never get it. They'll never make those connections.
Yeah, and that goes for a lot of people. They don't make those connections at all, and they're going to line up for the next boosters for years to come until, unfortunately, something really bad happens. And it's happening. We see that a lot. You keep seeing, there was a Nick who I also interviewed. He's got a lot of data out there that's coming out of, these COVID shots. Crazy evil. I used to watch these cartoons, right? And there was always the mad scientist. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's actually real. They're not just in cartoons. They're actually mad scientists creating poison and just injecting it to see what happens. And they knew they were going to kill
Yep.
a lot of people in the
Yep.
millions.
I
It's
saw this
crazy.
person speak the other day, and they said 1 in 25 people have psychopathic tendencies. Like
It's a lot of
that's
people.
crazy amount. Obviously, with all those things, there's a degree. You could be a little bit of a psychopath or a really big psychopath, but still, that's disturbing to know.
Yeah, and 1 in 25 of those are probably the billionaires that we're seeing destroy our planet.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they choose careers where their psychopathic tendencies can be used.
Crazy. Well, I'm glad you found a way to detox yourself, and then you wrote the book. And how did you figure it out so fast though, or did it take years? Because I know you told me once you put it all together, you detoxed. What did
I
your
mean,
detox look like?
well, I used a lot of liquid zeolite. I'm a big fan of that. But, I still had issues, and it's really in the last year that I've had big improvements with my health, and that I think it's from buying an ozone machine. I've got like a medical grade ozone machine, and I do that sort of 3 times a week. I've started drinking the hydrogen water.
Water.
Amazing. I've been chronically dehydrated my whole life, which makes sense when I've again connected the dots with all the vaccines I've had. They can really wreck your kidneys. But yeah, as you said before, getting the basics right is so important. And to think, I mean, I've only had that bottle for a month. And before that, yeah, dehydrated all the time. I knew it. I could always see it in my skin. I felt it in my body. And now that I've been using that, just feel completely different.
And you mentioned the smell that your husband could smell
Yeah.
kind of sickness. Is that? And it was
Yeah,
gone.
I know.
But he
Crazy,
never
right?
told you, like he smelled, there's like this odor coming out of you. And it makes sense because toxins do they're going to give out odors, right?
Oh, and I know, like, because we all sweat, don't we? I know if something's not right, if I'm sweating and I can smell it in an unpleasant way, then I'll be like, oh, I need to, I don't know, go and detox a bit more, use a sauna or something. But it is a good indication for health. And it's interesting because they've trained dogs to sniff cancer in some people. So it's
That's
obvious
right.
that when you're ill, you give off a certain smell. So, yeah, all those things, I would say in Chinese medicine, that might be something that's an indicator as well of not being in good health. Another thing I'd love to show you is this. This was completely life changing. And I'm not sharing it to sell it because I can tell people watching a very inexpensive alternative. So, having years of trauma, it does a very bad number on your nervous system. And gosh, it's terrible when you have a nervous system that's so sensitive. And in my case, even if I was excited and happy, that would send my nervous system to produce adrenaline. I wouldn't be able to sleep because I had no control over my nervous system. And it's been awful. And when I said I've spent $50,000, it was on supplements trying to fix the nervous system. And I'd take all sorts of herbs, and some of them would they'd help a little bit where I could sleep or I wasn't feeling so up and down. But 99% of things didn't do anything. And then I kept reading about the nervous system, and that if you don't have a calm one that responds well to stress, then that is a big factor in cancer, disease, early death. So I was always aware of, I'm doing all these other things. Pretty sure my toxin level in my body is, pretty low. But this nervous system issue was really worrying.
You were sensitive to a lot of stuff, like
Oh,
and
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
noise.
yeah, yeah. Like noise. As I said, and it would even be I'd be driving in the car and all of a sudden I'd just feel like it's hard to describe, but I think people who've suffered with this or are suffering with it will understand what I mean. You almost feel like there's like a energy in your body that you can't switch off. And yeah, if you have an argument with someone, heart rate goes, and then you feel the chemicals come out. I could feel them in my stomach and in my chest, where I just knew that my body's now under massive amounts of stress. And it would just happen do things like that all the time. And it was really worrying because I knew that that meant I wasn't digesting my food, because the vagus nerve goes through your stomach as well. And yeah, if you're not digesting food, it means you're also not really digesting supplements very well. And then, I don't know, I must have been online and I heard someone talk about vagus nerve sort of electrical stimulation. And there's quite a few devices on the market. There's one, I think, called a pulsetto, which you can sort of wear on your neck and it will pulse the side. It's similar to this, but I just like the sound of this. And it's basically a TENS machine technology. And you put it on your vagus nerve and the electrical impulse just sends a shock to it. And when it's right, when you've positioned it right, you feel your sort of, it feels like a muscle, but it is a nervous system sort of pathway or highway, as I call it. You'll feel it pulse back. So I bought this and it was $300. And I thought, you know, at this stage I've spent 50 grand on so many things. What's that going to, you know, I'll give it a try. Wow. I mean, totally life-changing, where I was using it on both sides, 5 minutes every day, twice a day. Within 2 weeks, I've never had my nervous system go crazy ever again. Yep, my sleep is so good now. Normally, well, I'm almost 50, and until the last 3 weeks, I've been taking a sleep aid of some sort, magnesium or a herbal mixture every night to go to sleep. And I run out, and because I live in Costa Rica, I have to order things online and it can take sort of a month to get here. I've been sleeping without anything for the first time in my whole life. And I can't believe it because I'm so used to being, you know, someone that had to take a pill to get into that relaxed mode. But the only thing I can think of is that with all these things I've been doing recently, getting rid of the pathogens from the ozone, hydrating properly, doing the red light therapy, getting sunlight outside. But I do think this is a big part of it. And what I can tell people who are watching and think, oh, I'd love to use that, but it's too expensive. So on Amazon, women can get these, and men too. You look for something called a facial microcurrent device. Some of them are very expensive. You don't need to get those ones. The ones that's similar to this, where they'll have two little, it's usually silver, like a conductor, and it's mostly meant for muscle. So if I had a gel and put it on my face, I could use this, in fact I should do it, to help lift up my sagging cheeks that I've got because I'm almost 50. But you can use that little machine that's much cheaper than this with some conductive gel on your nervous system. And if, as I said, you do it twice a day, 5 minutes on each side, I promise you it'll change your life. If your nervous system is a mess, because in simple terms, the way I describe it is when your nervous system is really weak, it's like a weak muscle. The stimulation you get from the electrical impulses will strengthen that muscle, and then it will be able to respond to stress. So now, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I don't like loud places. I don't think I ever would like them. But I remember not that long ago, we were out at dinner and the football was playing on the TV and people were screaming and shouting when their goal, you know, won or whatever. The old me would hear them scream and I'd jump, and then the effects of the nervous system going crazy would probably last for hours. So much so I probably wouldn't sleep that night because it was so sensitive. And when we were out and I heard that, I still jumped because it was so loud. But my nervous system responded so well. For about a minute, my heart rate was going like that. Because again, with our primitive way of being a human, we should be adapting to stress. But it did. It reacted. It was telling me, oh, that's loud. And then all of a sudden, heart rate went back to normal. And I was like, it's never happened for me ever before. So I said, big fan of that technology. You don't have to buy that one I've got. You can get a much cheaper alternative that will do the exact same thing because it's just the TENS technology. And a friend of mine in England, she bought the one that I was talking about, and she's like, oh my God, it's amazing, because she was wanting this one, but she couldn't afford it. And I was like, well, you just try the ones that you can get online that are for your face muscles and just do it on your neck and see if it works. And
Yeah,
she
we'll
was like,
definitely
yep,
provide
it
that
does.
information for the audience so they can know.
Love
But
to do
yeah,
that.
I'm a believer because look, there's biohacks out there that are just gimmicks, but then there's some like this one here that makes a lot of sense because we were talking the vagus nerve. It's connected the gut to the heart to the brain. That's the axis, right? And just I mean, I have exercises that I do that I practice for my vagus nerve. There are breathing techniques, but once you are over that threshold where not even that is helping anymore, then obviously
Yeah.
you need some kind of electrical magnetic support. And we are electrical beings. So it makes sense if you do give it some kind of vibration or, support like that, it's going to kind of like realign it, right? Kind of give it an
Yeah.
alignment.
Yeah.
Like what they do with the heart when they have a heart attack. What do?
They
Electric,
shock
right?
you.
They
Exactly.
shock
That's
you.
such
So
a
it's kind
good
of like
way
a
to describe
shock.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not that hard, but not that hardcore, but it's a soft shock and it's going to put it back into balance. And I experience that with my breathing that I use because I
Hmm.
do practice that because I think everyone has nervous issues, especially
Yes,
because of the modern
absolutely. Yeah.
modern world with all the crazy low frequencies and the towers and all that stuff. So it definitely helps. I can see why it will help.
Yeah.
So it's maybe something I'm going to
Really.
put on my list. So that's awesome
Yeah. And
to have.
it's funny because all the trauma I've had over the years, I breathe so badly naturally, like just from the top of my lungs. Like I don't, yeah, I have to remind myself to breathe. It's really bad. And I don't know how to fix it. But obviously, by doing, yeah, breath work would be really smart. But it doesn't feel natural to me because I breathe so poorly that when I try and do breath work, it feels like too much hard work. But I like what you said about the threshold because that's what I'm trying to get people to understand that yes, meditation, all these things can help. But if your nervous system is so weak, it won't really do anything. You just have to break that cycle of it being so sensitive and so weak. And this is the thing that I say, if I'd have used this 20, 30 years ago, I think my life would have turned out quite differently. And again, my husband has said that in front of people. Anna's different now. She doesn't go mental as much as she used to. And yeah, my sister
Okay, he
thought the
stuck
same
around, huh?
thing. The same. Yeah, yeah. He's seen a lot. My transformation, but it's been a long journey and he's not really into stuff that I'm into. He's lucky in that he's a naturally healthy person, whereas I've had the fragile sort of health, but he's definitely seen the transformation because me now compared to what I was like when we first met, oh, night and day. And I'm still not perfect. Don't think I ever will be, but to be able to feel sort of like normal and to be able to go and walk. I never used to be able to walk very far when I was at my sickest in England. We lived in London, beautiful museums. Do you think I walked around them or sat down on a chair? He would go look at all the beautiful things and I would sit there waiting for him because I was so weak. And, he'd go, do you want to go do this today? And I'd be like, oh, no, I'm too tired. So I've spent a lot of my life doing nothing and just lying down and sitting down. And yeah, now I feel like I'm hoping that the older I get, the fitter I will get.
Oh yeah, there's a possibility. You're still young. There you go. You're gonna enter your 50s. You're gonna realize like you still have a lot of life left, a lot of strength left, especially if you're doing things right now. So
Yeah.
you will be fine.
And I think what I'd love to say to people is if you resonate with my story at all, there is hope. You can get better. You really can.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping it
As
doesn't take you as long as it took me because there's things that I would say to people now that I've taken too long to do, but it's possible. I think the body is always trying to heal us, and if you know the basics of things to do, it can really make a difference.
Yep, the body's resilient. That's for sure. It's always looking to heal you. Now, like I say, it's going to take more support from our side and learning. It's important to know that, it's not just about evaluating what you're eating, right? It's not just food anymore. It's actually the environment, the, even who you're spending time with, right?
Yes.
Because
Yep.
that's even toxic, right? Like you mentioned, not just the noises you're hearing, but the people you're hearing that are toxic. That could take you down. You start realizing, oh my gosh, I have to reevaluate my relationships, get away
Yeah.
from those people. And that's why we have to keep adapting. So let me give you something here. I am going to ask you my favorite rapid fire questions. All right, we're going to switch it up and we want to get to know you a little bit more. So let me ask you this. Now that you're not as sensitive, what do you prefer, coffee or tea or
I love the taste of tea, like English breakfast tea, but my body doesn't really like it. Like I don't process caffeine at all well. If I drink coffee, and I haven't had one in years, I can feel it in my body for like a whole day. So it doesn't work for me very well at all. So I had a cup of tea the other day. I had to do an interview. So I drank that before just to give my mind a little bit of a boost. But usually I avoid both. Yeah.
even the green teas? Oh, there's also herbal teas that don't have any caffeine.
Herbal herbal teas are fine. They're good. In fact, I have lemon balm growing in my garden. I love that. That is delicious to
Lemon
drink.
balm,
So
yeah.
yes, I would have that.
All right, so you are in Costa Rica. What do you prefer, beach or mountains?
Oh gosh, it's probably the beach. We do have lovely beaches here. And on a beautiful day, and when the ocean is quite flat and we're in the sea, I pinch myself and think, wow, I can't believe we live here.
That's a nice place. I still haven't been there, but
Come.
it has similarities, yeah, to like I said, like the south of Mexico for
Mhm.
sure. But I have to make sure I go over there one of these days. Okay, what about let's ask you sunrise or sunset?
That's a hard one to choose from. I think sunrise can be just so special because it's usually quiet and the lighting is beautiful. So yeah, I would say sunrise.
And from what I hear, the benefits are much better with sunrises. So
Yep.
absolutely is something that I continue to work on because for many years I would say I'm not a morning person, but the reality is there's no such thing. It's just the habits that we build,
We
right?
we get woken up by monkeys here in the trees. So I kind of
There
yeah,
you
I have
go.
no choice but to wake up sometimes right at
Yeah.
5 o'clock every day. Yeah, it's bad. Because I used to like to sleep in, but I can't anymore.
Yeah, that's good. The monkeys help out. All right, let me ask you a question that I'm going to put you on a time machine and you're going to go back to meet the 18-year-old Anna.
Oh,
And you have
wow.
a couple minutes with her. And what
Yep.
would you give her as far as advice, the 18-year-old youngster?
It would be stop being an idiot, stop drinking, stop doing drugs, and listen to that person who gave you the list of things to do to help your body. Go do those liver flushes. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because you were given that at
Yeah.
18. You were
And
given the
and I would
keys.
also say I would say stop trying to get your parents' validation. You're never going to get it. You're wasting your time, and it's okay that they don't get you. It's okay. Others will get you.
Others will get you. That's right.
Yeah.
That's usually how it is. Sometimes it's the strangers that get you more than, your close friends and family. So that's
Absolutely, that's so true. Yeah.
great advice to her. That's good. And you know what? You've woken up. It's never too late. So you're there. Awesome. Now, where can people find your book and where can they find you so they could obviously follow
Well,
you? One's on
I
Instagram, right?
actually give my book away for free. So if you
Awesome.
find me on Instagram, and if you just type into Instagram Wellness Mama Vibes, that's me. And then I have a Beacons AI link. And if you scroll down, it says free copy of Toxic World, Toxic People. It's quite an expensive book on Amazon. If you buy it in print, it's literally about that big. It's like 897 pages. It's
That's a
just
big book. Wow.
really,
Yeah, definitely.
really, it's not all about toxins. There was a lot. Like if someone wanted their open-minded, newly pregnant relative or friend, it would be a very good book for them because it educates them on everything to do with kids, food, supplements, obviously toxins, vaccines, water. And then I have a section on schools, the school system, attachment parenting. So yeah, I think it's a good
Very
book
well
for
rounded.
young women.
That's great for
Yeah,
parenting and health and wellness all around. That's
But
awesome.
it's
And
it's
it's
like
free. Okay,
21
great.
it's like $21 to buy, or sometimes it's more expensive on Amazon. So I own the ebook rights, so I'm more than happy to give it away for free.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. We will make sure that everybody gets their hands on that book, and I will be sharing right here on the screen. They're seeing it right now as this is edited, so for sure. Now, let me ask one last advice you would like to give women, especially, my audience is 70% of my audience is 40 plus year old women, right? What
Oh,
advice
cool.
would you give to them before we wrap it up here?
In what way? Like health wise, or
In the way lifestyle, right? Especially as we're getting older, aging with intention. What advice would you give to them? There's so much information out there, confusion. So, what would you give
I
them as far as advice?
yeah, I would say obviously your hormones are so important to be balanced, but be very careful of what road you go down for that. I'm not a fan of the injections with the peptide and the hormonal therapy, the HRT, the bioidenticals. Women are not being told the truth about them, and that when you take those things, it shuts down your glands even more. So that if you're to come off them suddenly, you're going to feel like crap. And I've experienced that. There are other ways to help with your hormones. Yeah, again, having a really healthy liver, or with what I use. I think we had a chat about that. This is the
Yeah, tell me about that. I think you told
yeah,
me about this one.
it's a world first product. They've sold 10 million bottles since they started 9 years ago. It's a human growth hormone stimulating gel. There's 191 amino acids in the somatropin, and it's homeopathic. So it's not giving you the HGH. It's making you produce more of your own. It's got 11 herbs in there as well, which also help with your hormones. And it's got glandulars of the thyroid and adrenal. Yeah, I think it's not vegan. It comes from, I think, chicken or something, but it's a tiny amount. So the product is not just helping with your estrogen and your testosterone, because there's 50 hormones. I don't think people know that, but the human body produces 50 hormones. In fact, they're finding new ones all the time.
Yeah, and I
And
believe
there's
there's more.
well,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, there's 12 glands in the body that produce the hormones. So this product will help with your adrenals and your thyroid as well. I've been on that for about 4 years. I came off it in between that. And what blew me away was I didn't have any withdrawals, because when you're taking the testosterone or the estrogen, progesterone, it's difficult to get the levels right. But when you do, if you come off it suddenly, you tend to feel terrible, because again, it's making your gland weaker, because you're having
Yeah, you're
a
relying on that.
fairly like a large amount, and then your body is weaker in a sense, and people aren't being told the truth about that. So this product it really is amazing. I've met people that have stories that will bring you to tears, because when you look at the studies behind human growth hormone, I think there's literally over like 150,000 studies. It's on all different parts of your body, from your bones, muscles, brain, skin. I met people that had scientific evidence that their spine was in like decline. So they had disc degenerative disease. And after being on this for a year, they went and had another MRI or whatever the scan's called. And the bone has grown back. So human growth hormone can do amazing things, because it's what is in our children when they're young. They have a lot of it. That's why they don't have wrinkles. They sleep well. The skin is great. When we get older, after the age of 25, our natural production of human growth hormone just starts to decline. And there's things that can help it. Doing weights, exercise can help it. But we're also living in a world now, going again back to the toxins that are really messing with our hormones.
Yep, that's where we
And
need extra support for sure.
did you know, for women, when they're in like perimenopause and menopause, they are more likely to commit suicide in that period of time in their life,
Wow.
because of the hormone dysregulation. So that's what I would say is, if you're suffering with hormones that are, we all know when they're not right, don't let it go, because the older you get, the more deficient you'll be. and the worse your symptoms will be. And as I said, there's other ways of creating like true hormone balance. And we are now in an era of hormone therapy that's not actually about true hormone balance.
It's not. It's a
It's just
crutch. Yeah.
hormone therapy. That's what it is. It's not about actually regenerating your glands and making them work better. So
It's about
yeah.
control and, using it as a crutch, and you're going to be stuck for life with those hormonal therapies. Okay, great. I'm going to make sure we add that to the list there as far as sharing
Oh,
it
thank
for our
you. You're
audience
so
for
kind.
sure, because, you know, we don't have to say, like I said, most of my audience is women over 40 and perimenopause, and menopause comes up a lot. So this is something to really look into. Give it a shot. Again, it's not always, or it's never one thing, but it's another layer of support that we could definitely use. So thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
thank you.
information here. Thank you for sharing and adding those tips for us to learn more. And for our audience, if this episode caught your eyes, or you think you should be sharing it with friends or family that would benefit from this, go ahead. It's on our Spotify, on our YouTube, and share it with your friends. And if you want to follow Anna, it's right here on Instagram. You want to follow, get her free book. Get her free book. Right? And like I say, aging is not the problem. It's aging without the intention that's a problem. And that's what we want to make sure that people understand. There is a better way, no matter if you're aging. You age gracefully by doing the work, right? Getting onto new habits. And that's what we're all about here. So again, thank you so much for joining us here. Anna, thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. I'm really appreciative of you asking me to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Peace, everyone.